Great. I think we're ready to begin. We'd like to do a quick overview of the proposed draft budget reductions and how they've changed since last Thursday. You can take it away,
That's
Superintendent, or Katie.
I'll go through the line by line, and then we'll go from there with questions. So the proposed budget that we'd like to put forth to City Council, that the school board will look at next Monday, a week from tonight, sits at $36.8 million. And the shortfall that we've been grappling with the last couple of meetings from the tax cap compliant budget to our proposed budget is approximately $2.2 million, a little bit under. And I think we've been through three variations of kind of struggling to make these difficult decisions. And I will run through. Does everybody in the audience that wants one have one of these? Okay. Yep. Thank you. And everybody up here's got them, and they were sent out Friday or Saturday, I think. So in order to get from the $36.8 million to the tax cap compliant budget of close to 2.2 less, the first four lines here in the draft budget reductions are all proposed additional staff that we're taking out of the $36.8 million proposed budget. We would have liked to have had a high school teaching position. We're pulling that out. We would have liked to have added a Idlehurst Elementary teaching position. We're pulling that out. We would have liked to have added 2 special education case managers. We're pulling one of them out, and one of them remains in the proposed budget. We needed to add an additional ESOL teacher as well. We've pulled that back. And now we get into existing positions. We've discussed 2, 3, and 4 as possibilities of cuts from the middle school, and we've landed on 3 in this version, and that's based on enrollment. Nothing more, nothing less. A media specialist is in the proposed budget, and in our existing budget, it wouldn't be cut. We've talked about 1 or 2 CTC programs, and as it stands right now, we have 1 CTC program existing as a prospective cut. We've discussed quite a bit the paraprofessionals, and this, again, is not really so much a meet the tax cap compliant budget strategy as we probably need to do better with fewer paraeducators, particularly in the high school. And that's reflected here in a cut from 7 existing positions. And worth noting is these would be very unlikely that these would be human beings, as we generally have well over 10 to 15 positions open at the end of the year. We have 1.5 full-time equivalents being cut from our custodial crew. We would have hoped to have kept that to 1/2 to 1 at most. Our facilities director is going to look at potentially down the road other ways to cut facilities budget to make sure we keep ourselves properly staffed, but we're at 1.5 there. An existing elementary teaching position, that would be at Maplewood, is a cut from an existing position like the middle school based on enrollment, but this is one we'd rather avoid if we should get some help from the city council later on. Existing high school teaching position, another one we would like very much to avoid if possible. If we can figure out a way to do this, to cut 1 administrative assistant position from what is effectively a large complex, building complex between the middle school, the high school, and the CTC program, where we have 6 administrative assistants spread among those 3 programs or buildings. We're wondering if we can make do with 5. We're not sure about it, but all of this is tier 3 difficult stuff. The social worker contracted position, district-wide, was considered last year, and it's being considered again. I'm going to come back to the PD planning line and explain that one in a second. The proposed additional second school resource officer, which we've been discussing, is being cut for this sake from the tax cap compliant budget. $15,000 in SAU course reimbursement and travel, $22,000 in utilities and fuel adjustment. I'm going to skip the next 2 lines and come back to them in a second to wrap up. The technology contract adjustment, we've got $180,000 for technology for the coming year. We may have to do an RFP for this one as we complete a 2-year contract now, but we're hoping we could save a little bit more than the 180, which is already down from what we're currently spending. Major facilities projects, there were 5 in the proposed budget, and I think we've cut 2 or 3 of them, reflected in that $15,000. And then proposed facilities line items increases, cuts across the board, across the district to the, not the major project stuff, but the general maintenance things. Again, that is a very difficult cut, but it's there. And then to go to the 3 items I skipped, just to be clear, where we left off Thursday night, we didn't get back at this one, but we had earlier discussions about the importance in the context that we're operating right now, to not spend money on professional development, planning, Somersworth, or beginning to look hard at a district-wide math program or initiative of some sort. We put $125,000 in the proposed budget, and we slashed almost all of it when we were looking at also eliminating assistant principals or the assistant superintendent, quite honestly, because there'd be nobody here to help us get this work done. With those folks back in, we need to put this money back in, especially with the decision at our last school board meeting to move forward with the task force or commission to look hard at how we've got our district designed in a quick way. But we didn't want to go back on positions. So what we did here is we expect that we're going to be, Katie generally makes sure we budget conservatively for transportation. McKinty-Vento, the line we skipped, a $50,000 savings there. And out of district's placements, $50,000 there, because we're working aggressively to see if we can save money in both of those areas. By putting some of that into the PD line item, what it gives us is the flexibility, because we're not going to commit $92,500 in PD and planning and summer work on day one. We're going to spend it throughout the year. So it gives us one of the areas to find a little bit of cushion if we find that we're running tight on transportation or out of district placements. We can move dollars around, but we felt it was pretty important. We felt it was very important to get that in there in some magnitude or another, even if we don't end up getting to spend it all. And all of this totals about $180 more than the necessary on the tax cap compliant budget. I hope that last part made sense. I just wanted to kind of make sure it was explained. And that's where we left off. Katie, if you want to add anything or talk about the budgets, I think that's where we are. And I think this is true to the spirit of the last 2 discussions that we've had at the board level.
Thank you, John. Board member Carrie, or Vice Chair Carrie, had a message she wanted me to read tonight, so I'm just going to do that in this moment. Dear members of the Somersworth School Board, I'm writing as a Somersworth resident to respectfully ask that the school board formally communicate with the City Council regarding the significant financial pressures facing our schools and request consideration of a tax cap override. Current budget constraints combined with rising costs and fixed obligations are limiting the district's ability to sustain educational services at the level our students and community deserve. While I understand that the board does not control the tax cap, I believe it is appropriate and important for the board to advocate for the resources necessary to maintain a stable and effective school system. A formal request or resolution from the school board would signal seriousness of these challenges and provide the City Council with clear understanding of the impact our current funding limitations are having on our schools. Thank you for your continued service to our students and community in considering this request. Sincerely, Carrie Clark, Somersworth resident.
Request. I've asked for this before, and I've shared with the board and new board members as well of all of our reductions throughout the years that we put together, and what we've reduced. And can we add this proposal, however it comes to that listing. Do you know what I mean? And can that be shared? I think it's very similar to the previous years and budgets and reductions. And then part of that as well, we won't have that, this number is how much we return to the city at the end of the school year or our fiscal year, which is almost the same. So is that all right? Is that doable? Board budget meeting, yeah. I think it's a good perspective on over the years. It was from 2017, I believe. I mean,
think I did it last
You
year or the
did.
year before, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we-
so I
this
could
can
just
just be
add the
added.
last, yeah.
and then shared with the board, and then I think perhaps shared with city council as well, or maybe added to our agenda materials for the 16th.
Can I just ask a couple of questions? Sorry. I'm looking at last packet that we received and then today's paper. And I'm just kind of looking at the numbers and like the proposed facilities line item increases. It's short, the one we got today is short $1,120 from the last time. Also, the major here we go. The technology one is different as well. On here, the technology was at 25 and the technology's up 2,500. The major facilities is different. So if we look at major facilities, it was at 20,000, it's at 15,000 now. I'm just trying to figure out, was there changes or things that we need, or is there something that made these numbers change? The SAU course reimbursement travel, are you gonna start taking your car? It's short 500 on the new paper. I'm just looking at these numbers and wondering, what's happening. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out from last
The
packet.
tech contract adjustment was due to ongoing conversations about, which will continue, so that was, at the moment, feeling we could cut, so that was additional cut. It was spending less, $2,500 or more. The rounding on proposed facilities line item increases, which is already a significant increase, was simply rounded down when we didn't need that much.
Didn't need it? Okay.
Yeah, and it's pretty tight, and we've got 1.5 custodial positions up there, so it was a good place to begin.
Okay.
And the major facilities project, again, I think Jay's total for the 5 projects was almost
79,000.
79,000, so we've just, that part's honestly a game because he's got $79,000 worth of stuff that should have been done 3 years ago. And we've kind of like, what can we do next year? And they're estimates, so we just kind of made it work where we
Okay.
could.
I'm just asking
Yeah.
these questions
No,
because the
it's good
public's gonna
questions.
want to know why is their numbers different. Thank you.
And it's important to remember too, when, for example, when you look at the very first 4 lines there, 107, 194, that does not mean we knew we were going to hire a high school teacher that cost exactly that much. It's just based on an outgoing position. All of this is best estimate, either based on who was last in a position or just using a formula for what the average is for that spot.
Yeah, anytime we have an open position, I usually do like a middle-of-the-road salary and a 2-person health plan, just as a, placeholder.
Okay. Thank you.
I just had a question for clarity on the full-time positions that are being reduced. Could you give me a better estimate, and it's okay if it's not in this moment, of how many staff from the schools would be, who are employed right now, who would not be next year?
Actual people that would
Yeah.
hope to have returned that may not. It would be an estimate because sometimes the position's cut and certification bumps them into another spot, and then somebody else may or may not be gone from there. But I would tell you that based on what we have before us right now, 3, 4, 5, counting custodial, probably just under 10 actual
Okay.
people that might be in a spot of thinking, I would have liked to have been here next year, and that stinks.
Yep.
And that's in a world where there's no additional support from the city council. worst case scenario with a tax cap compliant budget. I think it's high single digits.
And how do we make it clear to the city council that we would like to save positions? I mean, I would like to save positions if they grant us the money to do that.
The board, I think the board making a statement is good. Katie and I in particular have been working ridiculously closely with the council through last year's budget and this year's budget. And you've seen multiple members here. I think they know, and the mayor as well, exactly where we are. And an understanding, just to make sure everybody's clear, they really have two opportunities to help us this year. Because we've budgeted for the entire balance of the school care assessment next year. The city council, who passed a resolution in the fall, that at the end of this year, if we needed help with that school care assessment, they'd help us out. Given the environment that we're in now, they'd have the opportunity before the April deliberations around budget, if they chose to and if the dollars were there, to take a bite out of that budget item. And then they also have the opportunity, like they did last year and so many other years in the deliberations, to look at moving dollars around to get us there. But I believe they know it, and I think the board members that have been here longer than I would trust whatever the best way is to communicate that further.
You had mentioned that middle school teaching positions were being cut because of enrollment. Are those positions that would probably need to be cut regardless of the budget constraints?
No, I think in some ways the middle school had kind of doing all the right things maybe got a little bit out in front of some other schools in the past years, and I would have rather seen other schools catch up to the middle school approach in staffing with interventionists and class sizes, but that hasn't proved to be the case.
To kind of look at this budget and what we have left over, I guess, at the end of the year, and what we're on the hook for the $450,000 for the school care, and what we have typically rolled over about $200,000 in years past, like last year was very helpful to our budget. I don't know. Because we're not anticipating any money left over to utilize next year. Is there anything in the current year, and I know we haven't frozen the budget, but because we're so constrained, is it worth to even look at a portion of $50,000, $100,000 to go towards school care now? No, that's a lot. Or is there anything else for the remainder of the year that we can tighten up on in order to have any remaining balance? Or has that already been assessed?
Well, I'll let Katie talk about remaining balance, but I don't think we can. I think it'd be fiscally irresponsible to put anything more towards school care assessment now, given what we're running at. We're kind of right down to the edge, and we're only there now because we know the city council has already said we have your backs if you pay this now. And unfortunately, whatever end of year balance we might have, which will probably be very small, we won't know till the end of the school year after all this is done and said and contracts have already been firmed up. The city council in March and before the deliberations, using this year's dollars, might have the opportunity to help us out a little bit, but I think that'll be in there. I don't know, you want to speak to projected end of year balance, Katie?
I'm doing a budget update now for your board meeting next week. Looking at it today, I think we're at the good, like about 30,000 between budget and actual. Knowing that your report's going to show we have an available balance of like 400,000, but there are a number of line items that are budgeted but not spent yet. Schools have supply lines that are showing in the available balance, but they are, we haven't frozen the budget, so those are available to spend. A lot of Jay's lines are still, open and ready to spend if we need them.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. I think with that,
Without putting a budget freeze on and saying no more spending and everything's going,
I mean, then for fiscal year 27, my suggestion for this budget is to look at supply lines. Because I've been here long enough to know that you can buy paper and books and pencils in August, but you can't get people at that time. And I know it's tedious, and I know it's one of those things that it's just like, why do that? But in my short calculation, I looked at about $75,000 to save if of all of our supply lines. And I only say that, and I wouldn't say that in any other time, but I know that we can get supplies back, but we just can't get people back at that time. And a lot of times we receive the money and we maybe ask for a supplemental appropriation, or we ask for, if we've reduced our lines, which is not ideal. It's just my preference to have that be reduced rather than, I'm not even sure if we can get one position, but it would get close enough, and we'd be able to weather that better. Just for what this is. As it goes forward and we vote on this on the 16th, and then City Council has it in March, do we have an understanding of, or has like the city manager and mayor said like when they will start to deliberate on the school's side, or they have to figure out theirs? Would that be April, mid-April?
I believe the city manager has until March 15th to give the council the proposed budget. Typically, we're presenting to council in early April. I did reach out to the city finance director to see if any meetings had been scheduled yet, and they had not.
Okay.
Two city councilors have specifically said, given contracts and people hanging in the wind here from February 16th onward, that they were sensitive to that,
Okay.
as they were last year with doing it all in one meeting.
Okay. So I think it would just be, because it will come back to us, to kind of, usually we had the tiered under, where things were at. But I don't see too many things here we can make up next year, Yeah, I'll yield back if you want to start.
Yeah, if anyone in the audience has anything to say, you're welcome to come up to the podium.
Hi, my name is Katie Goulet. I've been following the City Council and School Board, as well as the Superintendent forums for the last year or so. And I've observed the complexity of the budget process, and I appreciate the expertise and the effort and the insight that you have demonstrated. It's become clear to me that the current strategy, no matter which line items fall above or below the line, is pretty much unsustainable, and that it creates a great amount of concern at many levels. But I did want to say that based on the motion that was proposed at the last meeting, I strongly encourage the school board as well as city council and the community to support the creation, implementation, and execution of the strategic planning task force. I think it's essential that new ideas and approaches, funding streams be explored for the future stability of the Somersworth school system. I think there's stuff out there. We just need to go after it and get a team of people in place to do that. And I look forward to participating in that task force and supporting the future of public education in Somersworth. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
Yeah. So it's been many budget seasons for me this season, and I just wanted to speak briefly about kind of where we find ourselves. I was hoping for more folks to come out, but maybe we haven't. Yeah, it's a tough process, and I think we're still in the beginning part of it, but it kind of feels like the end as we start to vote on it on February 16th. Input matters deeply to this board, to me, and as board members collectively, it's our legal authority, right, to make final decisions on this budget before it goes to council. And it's usually not a budget of additions, it's this reductions. And I really wish we were here saying what our additions were. It would be a much more pleasant and sustainable practice. When we received these, the list of teachers, middle school teachers, elementary teachers, 7 paraprofessionals, a custodian, CTC program. Many of these positions are reduced, and then based on tenure in the district, which is tied to their CBA. But there are people here, they're colleagues. They have students and families who value them, and the difference is that these cuts kind of feel anonymous on paper. But we feel the weight of that, I think, more so, knowing that we have a responsibility to our district to sustain, but we also have a responsibility to our staff. Our strategic plan that we are pulling forward is examining our organizational structure and student outcomes and how this all applies to our strategic, like our plan now and in the future. But when we're looking at reducing 20 plus positions, it's difficult to see that, right? When we receive this paper in front of us, it feels like a weight for our neighbors. It feels a weight for our responsibility that we're doing the right thing. I think when questions are asked, when I'm talking about not having supplies, it's not about I don't value them. It's just asking these hard questions and not being at the, discussions before. And it's not about the value, it's about asking hard questions and seeing if, when resources are constrained, what we can do. We are operating in the state, and I know we've said it many times, that is the most minimal funding for education, and particularly for special education reimbursement from my perspective. If we had more of that, we really would be in a better place financially. However, on my end, there's community members that are clearly telling us that the tax increases are a significant burden. We have $2 million over the tax cap, and there's not an easy answer here to how to get through this. But I'll ask the public to kind of give us grace when we work through this. Many lines here are people's livelihood, a classroom, and someone's support system, and we feel the weight of that. I've said that multiple times, but it is weighty. Please keep showing up. Please keep contacting the board. Tell us what matters to you. We need your voices now more than ever to help us understand what this community values. And when we're forced to make impossible choices, I've said it before, but everyone has a seat at the table. We haven't done an input session like this. We are kind of always available for input, but this is a little bit more structured. But we hear you, and it's weighty when many folks kind of come and talk to us, knowing us, and it's a difficult ask to say, what else can we do? What else can we look at that will work? So that's my plea to the community. Thank you.
We'll look at the supply line piece, but just a heads up to the committee and all the board members that are here and probably are following along. We anticipate having the school board agenda and the budget and the cut list that'll go to the February 16th meeting out either tomorrow at the end of the day or Wednesday morning at the latest, remembering that we're meeting on Monday, so that'll all be posted and available for folks that want to look at it again. But we'll take the budget committee's input as landing here, but with the one note to look at the supply line possibility, see if we can do something there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Real quick, so once we have the meeting on the 16th and we go forward with that, I'd really like for the budget group to be able to continue to look at this budget and see, longevity. We have to, it's so crazy when we're looking at the budget now and everything is hectic and, you know, this is a lot we're cutting, and I want to see like for, you know, the years to come. And I kind of want to be able to pull this apart and see, can we find more grants? Can we find more additional stuff? So I think that the budget team can really work harder in trying to figure out more for future.
Do you want to make a date, or can this be a part of the just be a part of the task force? I'd like any meeting that's this big, either if it's a task force or a budget, kind of looking to be posted as like a full board. So if all the board members want to show up, that's okay, and we don't have quorum and have to not have a committee meeting because everyone's here and we're a full board meeting. So are we looking at a future date? Because this is our last budget date, is it, Carly?
I think we should, and be able
put
to
another
include
date on?
other ones. Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
We have a lot of work to do.
March. What do we typically meet on? March 25th, March 18th, Wednesday? Or what do you think? Mondays, Tuesdays? Okay, we'll do like the 24th? March 24th? Yeah, we'll have to figure it out. Oh, that's a Tuesday. March 24th. I don't see anything on the city calendar. March 24th at what time?
Does that work for you, Katie?
5? 5? Yeah. Okay. 5, March 24th. It's a Tuesday. Do we have a school board meeting? Wait,
I was
hold
just gonna say, is there any other meetings on the agenda
Well, we
currently
could
right
meet
now?
right before
For
March
that.
10th and 24th.
Kat or Katie? No, okay.
Hold on a second. Yep, nope, nothing on the 24th.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that.
And is this just a budget committee meeting? Is that
Just
how
a
you
budget
want it
committee
posted?
meeting at the SAU. I don't think we need to continue doing
Not
this
here,
unless unless we hear from the public that they want this. 5 o'clock. Yeah, we have our board meetings March 10th and 31st.
Anyone have anything to add before we end the meeting? All right, I motion to end the budget committee meeting.
Second.